first came to foster care when I was 9 years old. I was told back then that I was going to go home within 2 weeks.
But I was in foster care when I was a youngster. I went in, I was about 5 years old. I remember a lot of those early days, so they must have been pretty traumatic.
I first went into the system when I was, I just turned 10, and my brother just turned 1. And we went to like 3 or 4 foster homes, I think it was.
Well, kids in America move their stuff in garbage bags. That's how kids move from foster home to foster home, and their stuff is messed with.
I kept on getting switched around from place to place because they couldn't decide exactly where they wanted to put me.
All too often, children would come into care and go to an emergency shelter and then go to a foster home at some distance from their neighborhood or community of origin, which would mean a change in school, severance from tremendous attachments they had in the school or in their church or in their neighborhood or community.
So we not only removed the child from parents, which is enormously traumatic, we were adding to that trauma by removing the child from everything that was familiar to the child.
And what Family to Family does is provides those linkages back in the neighborhood and community.
Family to Family is grounded in 3 fundamental principles which drive all of our work. First, family. Children do best, we believe, when they have a strong family. And our job in child welfare is to keep them connected with their family, and when they have to come into care, to see to it that they are placed with a good, strong family in their own community. Our second principle is community. We believe that families can do the job they do best when they are supported by their communities. And our job in child welfare is to keep children connected with their communities even when they have to come into care. Our third principle is partnership. Child welfare works best when the public agency reaches out and seeks partners to do the work that it has to do, especially those partners in the neighborhoods and communities that are home to so many of our children. Principles are important, but they're not enough. We have found that there are 4 key strategies that need to be put in place in order for these principles or goals to be achieved. And the first of those strategies is building community partnerships.
Certainly child welfare is learning that we need people on the block to care and help do that work. Schools can't educate our children all by themselves. Public child welfare cannot protect all the children. It needs to be a community effort, and I think more and more of our communities are stepping up and saying, part of that's my job, and we want to work with you.
We had to be convinced that they were really talking about partnering and that they were really talking about coming to our neighborhood, very humbly, I might add, to say that they needed help.
Well, what I've seen as a worker, oftentimes our jobs are overwhelming, and it really takes communities working together to solve the problems that are facing the children. And that means workers have to be responsible enough to say that I can't do this by myself, but I'm willing to work with another responsible person in the community that cares for the children just like I do.
Our goal is for children to be safe also. I mean, there's no confusing that. We want children to be safe. But we want to empower families to be able to be self-sufficient and help themselves.
The needs of the family may be great. You alone, as a social worker, cannot begin to meet all the needs of that family. If you can plug that family into other things that happen in the community in which people are seeing the family, interacting with the family, supporting the family ongoing, and you can have a dialogue with somebody about those kinds of connections, you're a little more protected in terms of assuring that that family at least is working their case plan, being in contact with somebody on a regular basis, getting the parenting classes they need, getting the emergency assistance things they need, and it lightens your workload. Not to mention the fact, once that case is closed and you're out of that family's life, the family still has all of these contacts in the neighborhood that they can tap into without you. Consequently, you don't have to have the case reopened down the road.
they're connected. The child's connected, the parent's connected, they're receiving services in their own community, and they're not isolated anymore, and that's the most important thing about it.
The second strategy of Family to Family is to build partnerships with our foster families so that we can better recruit and train and support those families, especially in the neighborhoods that are home to so many of our children.
I think a lot of times a birth family is terrified of the agency world, and as a foster parent, they feel a little freer to talk to us, and we can explain to them, this is what a case plan is, and this is what you need to do, and make sure you do this so you can get your child back in a timely manner.
That first visit was so important because the foster mom was happy to meet me, and we established that rapport.
Well, they were threatened by me, and I was a little threatened by them too. You know, you meet the parents and you get to know them, and they see what kind of person you are, and they see that you're taking care of their kids. They feel a little better about it.
And our foster parents too are trained in the concept that they are mentors for the birth parents, which is why it's so important for that relationship to develop well.
I always try to let them know from the very, very beginning that I'm here to help. I'm not here to take your kids. You know, I have kids. So anything that I can do to help you to get your kids back, let me know, and I'm here to help you.
The foster mother was beautiful. We got along great because she said, look, I don't want your baby. I want you to get yourself together. You're her mother, and I want you and your baby to be together.
And then it's including the parents and doctor's appointments, including the parents and birthday parties, calling up and saying, hey, what do you think? Do you think it's time for, you know, the kid to get a haircut? And so you want to come and let's go get him a haircut.
The foster mom gets to learn about that child from the expert on the child, his mother, his father.
I think one of the things that's really critical about Family to Family, and specifically the recruitment component, is that recruitment and support both go together, number one, and number two, it's everybody's job in the agency to recruit families as well as to support them.
And no matter who you talk to at the agency, the receptionist at the front door, the driver of the children, they will all know what it takes to be a foster and adoptive parent. We're ready to talk to you about it. We train foster parents, adoptive parents, and relative parents in the same room. They're the same issues that touch all those parents' lives. So it's a way for people to get to know each other, to build greater circles of support. I think another thing that happens when you have a well-supported foster care and adoption program is your recruitment job is really easy because happy and content foster and adoptive parents bring more people in the front door to you.
The third key strategy of Family to Family is team decision making. We have found that with the help of our neighborhoods and communities, and with the help of our resource families, we can make better decisions about children and families together.
Up until now, pretty much we were the ones who made the decision on whether a child is safe or not safe. And when we open the doors and have everybody come sit around the table and have input into what's safe for a child and what isn't, we also have to be willing to recognize that some decisions may not be as comfortable to us, but they are in the best interest of the children.
This is an opportunity for us to look at how we standardize our practices around the placement of children. The team is made up of several people. It will be the caring child welfare worker, it'll be the child welfare worker supervisor, it'll be a different child welfare who is specifically trained in the facilitation of the group process. It will be the parent, it will be the child, depending on the age of the child, and anybody the parent deems as support to that family. It could be the minister from the church, it could be the play auntie or play uncle, it could be a school teacher, it could be the neighbor next door. Anybody that the parent sees as a support to their family can be at this meeting.
Welcome. Thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Marianne Zatello and I'm a facilitator with our agency. We're here today for what's called a staffing, which is basically a meeting that we have when we gather together as a team with family members and members of our community in order to discuss issues specifically related to possible placement needs of your son, Tony.
And so everybody sits around together and tries to figure out the best plan for the child. So either we can keep the child at home and don't have to remove the child, or if we do have to remove the child, what's the best plan for the child in order to keep the child connected to the community?
Regardless of what their situation is, even if they're unable to really make the steps and the efforts to do what they need to do for their children, they are experts. They can dialogue and articulate to you what their family needs, what their family lacks, what works and what doesn't.
One thing we understand clearly that the legal responsibility of every decision belongs to the agency. We know that. That's the law. But in the long run, we have to trust, because of this partnership, that we can speak and be heard and that we can disagree agreeably.
The fourth key strategy of Family to Family is self-evaluation. We believe that the data is available now that can help us target areas where our work is needed, that can help us keep track of what's working, and that can help us celebrate the successes that we have and share them with our community.
We did an analysis of placements in New York, and we found that only 12% of the children who came into foster care were placed in their own neighborhoods, and the rest all over the city and sometimes outside the city.
It's your ability to know what's going on, find out where your successes are, where your challenges are, where your gaps in services are, using data to make informed decision making.
It's kind of interesting because I think everybody kind of knows or thinks they know a lot about their kids, but what it really showed to us is that we had a concentration in children coming into certain areas of the county that we didn't know before. Once we found out where our children were coming from prior to foster care with that data, we were able to go back to our current foster parents and say, hey, look at this. Community is so important. They agreed with us, so they were like great advocates. My advice would be at the beginning to make it very simple. If you're collecting data and you're getting your information from workers down at your staff line level, you need to produce a document back to them so that they know that what they're doing is important and they can understand that, hey, I remember filling out this form and it gave me that information. You also can use it in your county level for your legislature, for your board of directors. It's a way to provide valid information in terms of numbers to say this is what we're all about and this is how we know that what we're doing works.
We need to do better in child welfare. But the good news is that colleagues around the country from very diverse communities are showing that we can achieve better results for families and children if we are willing to partner with our communities and to change dramatically how we go about doing our work.
When I first heard about Family to Family, I have to admit I was sort of resistant to it too, because all I could see was what an enormous amount of work this was going to be, and oh my God, where was I going to put that on a plate that was already full and was about to crack and break? But you know, after I sat with it and thought about it, Family to Family wasn't saying anything that wasn't best practice. I mean, and as an ethical social worker, I think it's important in the field that we want what's best for children.
I just hope that, you know, people embrace this family to family model. It's done so much good and so much change.
I think the energy is there, the willingness is there, the will is there. And I think family to family keeps us on the same road.
The last foster home we went to, I loved it there because I felt like it was my family.
Children don't come from a void. Children come from a family. And I think one of the best gifts that you can give a child is their family back.